Good morning once again. In history, we are studying the second chapter, which is historiography, Indian tradition. And in this, we are studying how historiography started and developed in India. And we have very clearly understood that when we say Indian historiography, we are not referring to history written only by Indians, but we are referring to history written in India. Big distinction, big clarification. And we are studying this chapter in two different ways, in two different aspects. One is by time and another one is by ideology. This is how the chapter is structured. So currently we are studying the Indian tradition of historiography as from the perspective of different time periods. We have completed the ancient period and the medieval period. Today we will start with modern. We will start with modern period. We will complete the modern period, and we will also start looking at Indian historiography from another perspective, that is ideology. We will look at two ideologies. We will cover two ideologies today in this class, which will be colonial historiography and Orientalist historiography. These are the three things that we will cover. Please be ready with your textbooks, with your pencils to make annotations on the textbook, with your notebook, and with your pens to write wherever needed. But before we start anything new, let us quickly remember the last thing that we learned in the last class. We were studying about Bakhars, and we understood that these are one of the most important historical documents in Indian tradition from the medieval period, and Bakhars, which are in Marathi. We studied about 3 or 4 different specific Bakhars written in Marathi, and the last one that we studied was Holkaranchi Kaifiyat. Do you remember what this Bakhar talks about? What this document tells us about? If you remember, you can come out of mute and answer. If you want to type the answer, that is also fine. Waiting for your answers. What is this Bakhar about? What this document tells us about? So as Prachi, Khadija and Chand have said, this Bakhar, which is Holkaranchi Kaifiyat, talks about Holkars. Holkars were a family based in current day Indore. And this Bakhar talks about not just in general about Holkars, but specifically about how they contributed to the Maratha rule, the Maratha Empire. That is what this Bakhar talks about. And this is the last thing that we studied about the medieval period of Indian tradition of historiography. Moving on. Today, we will continue with the tradition of Indian historiography. As I said, we will look at the modern period and we will start looking at the historiography of Indian tradition of historiography from the ideological frameworks perspective. We will cover two ideological frameworks, the colonial and the Orientalist ideologies. These are the three things that we will cover: modern period, colonial historiography, and Orientalist historiography. There may be some words which will be completely new for you. There will be some words that you may remember that you have studied in the previous years. We will take it slow. We will explain every word. If you do not understand any word, then please stop me and ask what it means. Also, I once again remind you, whenever you are studying, whether you are in the class or you are studying on your own, you should also have your dictionaries nearby. So when we are studying history or political science or geography or maths or science, we should have our English dictionary with us because these textbooks are written in English. Let us begin with the modern period. I need 10 thumbs up to know that you are ready. Got 6, 7, 8. Very sorry that not even 10 students are ready to study. Please be ready, and please be ready to respond to the next question. So let us start from the beginning of the modern period. And in your textbook also, you can see the same pictures that I've used in the slides here. These two gentlemen, they are named Alexander Cunningham and John Marshall. When we talk about the modern period of Indian historiography, these two names are very prominent. And as you see, neither do they look Indian, nor are the names Indian. So clearly, what we had understood, that Indian historiography is not only about history written by Indians, but it is about history written in India. So the story begins in the 20th century. This is when Indian archaeological exploration and research started. This is widely accepted that before this, there was not much, or there was no archaeological exploration and research. Before we understand what is archaeology, can you tell me, when we say 20th century, what years are we talking about? Which years are we talking about?
Sir, archaeology means?
I told you, before we get into that word, first answer what is this period, 20th century. Prachi, correct answer. Aman and Chand, you haven't. Okay, Chand, I will give you the full marks. Aman, I cannot give you the full marks. Okay, Khadija, agreed. Karthik, your order is not acceptable. Ankit Gupta doesn't. Seems you did not understand the question. The question is not about 1 year. The question is about a range of years. So when we say 20th century, the years are 1900 to 1999. 1900 to 1999. Prachi, thank you for writing the answer the way you have written. Tushar, very good. 1900 to 1999. Good. Archaeology is the study of the material history. Materials are things that human beings make. When we study those things and we understand our history, that is called archaeology. And not everything that human beings have made are above the ground. A lot of it is under the ground, just like the fossils, but not as down below in the earth as fossils. So when we dig the ground and find the historical remains, whether we find remains of buildings or pots and pans or coins, all those things, the study of those things is called archaeology. Okay. And this started under the British rule. So when Prachi, Khadija, Chand, Tushar, Karthik, when they have said that this range of years is 1900 to 1999, clearly at this point in time, the beginning of this 20th century, India was under the British rule. So they are the people who started the archaeological exploration of India. And one of the main events that happened was the setting up of Archaeological Survey of India. It's an organization. It's an organization that does the main archaeological work. It was set up by the Britishers. It was set up in the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century, and it still exists. It still exists. Even today, ASI short form exists, and they are in charge of the well-being and the maintenance of historical monuments, whether they are temples or churches or mosques or any other historical building. Archaeological Survey of India preserves them. So much so that Archaeological Survey of India was also involved in doing some research to find out whether there was a temple in Ayodhya or not. This is the work of Archaeological Survey of India. And the reason Alexander Cunningham is so important is he is the person who set this up, Archaeological Survey of India, and he was the first Director General of this organization. Also, when he spearheaded this organization, when he was leading this organization, the main exploration that he did was at places of the sites that are mentioned in Buddhist texts. We have already studied, when we studied ancient period and the medieval period, that we learn about history from religious documents also. So these Buddhist religious documents, whatever places, whatever sites are mentioned in these documents, Alexander Cunningham focused on those places for the archaeological exploration of India. Then Sir John Marshall. He was also a Director General of ASI, another important. And the reason he is important, and he is mentioned in our textbook, is during his time and during his Director Generalship of ASI, we discovered the Harappan civilization. I hope you remember. Harappan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, showed you the website. Aman told us Mohenjo-daro, Mound of the Dead. So those surveys, those exploration, that discovery happened during John Marshall's leadership of Archaeological Survey of India. And yes, Chand, you are correct. When this was discovered, we realized that the Indian civilization takes us back to 3rd millennium BC. That our civilization is 5,000 years old. That we may have started writing so long ago, 5,000 years ago. But also remember, we haven't been able to decipher those writings. We haven't been able to understand what those writings mean. So I thought when I was making this lesson, I thought I would come to the meaning of archaeology at the last, but I'm happy that one of you noticed that word.
Sir, आपकी screen नहीं दिख रही है.
As I said, the study of the past based on objects or parts of the buildings that are found in the ground is called archaeology in a simple way. This is how historiography began in the modern period in India. So we are starting in the 20th century. Very recent. We are in the 21st century now. Less than 100 years. What happened next? So because this is the time when India was under the British rule, a lot of history about India, of India, was written by the British officials. Let us see who these officials are. This part of the chapter contains a lot of names of the people and what they have written. First name that is very important is the name of James Mill. James Mill wrote a book called The History of British India. You read the textbook properly, you will understand how many parts this book has. Where in the textbook, it mentions the volumes of the book. Volumes means how many parts there are of the book. And this book was published in 1817. Which century are we talking about? Is it 20th century or 19th century? Which century is this? 1870. Yes, Chan. This is 19th century. So let us not confuse with what we studied on the previous slide. What previous slides told us was the archaeological exploration started in 20th century, but the writings were happening in 19th century itself. Good. Thank you, Tushar, for reminding me that there are 3 volumes of this book, The History of British India. There are many more people. Another important person is Mountstuart Elphinstone. And I hope this name triggers something in your mind. There is a railway station on the Western Line in Mumbai, which is called Elphinstone Road, which is very near to Girgaon Chowpatty. That station is named after this person. He was the governor of Bombay for some time. And the book that he has written is called The History of India. It was written in 1841. Again, we are still in 19th century. More important writers. Another one is Grant Duff. He has written a lot about Maharashtra, Marathas, and his book or set of books is called A History of Marathas. That's the way he spelled. Three important names: James Mill, Elphinstone, and Duff. Colonel Todd, he has written about the history of Rajasthan. This is not a book. This is the topic that he has written about. William Hunter, he has written about the history of India. We will have to know these five names: James Mill, Elphinstone, Duff, Todd, and Hunter. But although they have a lot of British officials have written a lot about the history of India, not just of the entire country, but specific parts of the country also. But there are some critiques. Critiques means, how do we say, analysis of what they have written, whether it is right, wrong, how good they have written, how bad they have written, how right they have written, how wrong they have written. So the person who does this analysis is called a critic, C-R-I-T-I-C, critic. And this analysis is called a critique, C-R-I-T-I-Q-U-E. So critique is a piece of work, and critics, the second word, is the person who is doing the critique. We Indians notice that these writings, this historiography of the British officials and people of British origin, it has a lot of influence of the colonial policies of the British. Remember, again, at this time, we were under the rule of the British Empire. We were not an independent nation. We were not an independent country. We were a colony of the British Empire. What does this mean? It means that, again, this is only a critic. I am not an expert. I haven't read these books, but the experts are saying that these works, these books, they lack a objective perspective. कि objectively नहीं लिखा है, उसमें अपनी feelings आ गई हैं, उनकी अपनी feelings. What feelings they may be? That might be, if a British person, a person who belongs to a country which is ruling over India, if they write the history of our country, what may be the problem with this kind of history? Think and answer. What may be the problem? If the people who are ruling write about the people who are being ruled on, then obviously it is very much possible that they will feel superior. उनको लगेगा कि हम अच्छे हैं, हम ज़्यादा काबिल हैं. And the people that are being ruled, maybe they are inferior. When we say they are inferior, we are referring to the culture, the religion, the language, the practices, everything. And that is what has been observed by various critics of these works. Right? So they were prejudiced about Indian culture. मैंने उनको पहले से ही लगता था कि नहीं, ये कल्चर ठीक नहीं है, हमारा कल्चर बेटर. This reflects in the writings. Two very, very important critiques of these modern historiography by the Britishers, and especially those who have written about the history of Maharashtra, Marathas, and if you remember the name, Grant Duff. The critics are Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane. Again, these are the names that we need to know. Also, Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade. These are the two people who have done a lot of research about what these people have written, the Britishers, how good, how bad the writings are, how right, how wrong the writings are. There are other people also. And based on these analysis, the points that come out are that these writings are influenced by the colonial policies of the British. They lack an objective perspective, and they are prejudiced about Indian culture. You can write these points in your own words as you have already shared in the chat, right? But understand that there may be a superiority complex कि हम सही हैं बाकी लोग गलत हैं, हम अच्छे हैं बाकी लोग खराब हैं, ऐसा हो सकता है. So that is what was happening. That is how the modern period historiography in India started. We'll pause for a minute here and we will see if you have any doubts before we move to the next part of the session today, which will be about ideological frameworks. So what is this another perspective of ideological frameworks? I think we are coming across two new words, ideology and framework. What is ideology? In a very, very simple way, we can define ideology as a set of ideas. Kitna asan? Ideology has the word idea in it. So set of ideas which form the basis for a political or economic system. Or we can also say a set of ideas which form the basis of any system. Even if it is a set of ideas that form the basis of how we think, how we speak, how we behave, that is also ideology. And you should be able to make a connection कि हम जैसा समझेंगे, जैसा हम सोचेंगे वैसा ही हम समझेंगे. अगर हम ये मान के चलेंगे कि सामने वाले को कुछ नहीं आता तो हम उसकी बुराइयों पर ही ध्यान देंगे. अगर हम ये मान के चलेंगे कि नहीं सभी लोग बराबर हैं, सभी लोग समझदार हैं, तो हम उनके क्या एबिलिटीज पे फोकस करेंगे. So our ideology has an impact on our perspective. Agreed or not agreed? If you agree, thumbs up. If you don't agree, a thumb down. Good, you agree. There is no one who is disagreeing. And that is why we are going to understand the Indian tradition of historiography from ideological perspective की अपनी सोच के कारण कैसे हमारा historiography अलग-अलग हो जाता है. So the first ideological framework, and framework would mean is the same, the structure, हमारे ideas का structure. The first ideological framework that we will deal with is the colonial. And we have already completed this when we studied about Cunningham, Marshall, Mill, Elphinstone, Todd, Duff. All these are colonial people. We have also we have seen what the critics say about this, and that is what is colonial historiography, colonial ideology. So we are talking about these British officers, and we are also referring to the Christian missionaries who came to the country. British officers were ruling the country. Christian missionaries were going around the place talking about Christianity, spreading the word of Christianity and trying to get more and more people to adopt Christianity. And while the British officers had a bent of mind that we rule properly, our processes are better, the way we live is better, Christian missionaries, they had a thought. They thought that our religion is better. All other religions are of no use. Right? So they thought that the culture and people of colonies are inferior. That the people of India and the culture of India, they thought, it's not fact, they thought that somehow the people of India and the culture in India was inferior to the people and the culture of their own home country, which is United Kingdom. What happened because of this? Because of this, it is said that in their writings, they have ridiculed and condemned the Indian culture. उन्होंने उनका Indian culture का मजाक उड़ाया है और Indian culture को खराब बताया है. They have found faults with the culture and the practices, the people of our country, India. And this happens even now. ऐसा नहीं है कि उस जमाने में ऐसा होता था, अभी भी हम कहते नहीं है हम बेटर हैं तुमसे। दूसरे देश तक जाने की क्या जरूरत है? पड़ोसी भी लड़ने लगते हैं कि हम तुमसे अच्छा हैं। States are fighting between each other, countries are fighting between each other. When we say that India is the best country, so maybe we are also reflecting a superiority complex when we say that. Think about it. The better thought process would be कि सभी लोग बराबर। So because these writings are ridiculing the Indian culture, Indian people, they are condemning the Indian culture, Indian people. What the rulers did, they used these writings to justify. उन्होंने बोला कि देखो इतने सारे पढ़े लिखे लोग क्या कह रहे हैं कि इंडिया का कल्चर एंड इंडियन पीपल आर इंफीरियर, सो वी शुड गो देयर एंड वी शुड रूल। हम उनको सभ्य बनाएंगे। This was used to justify the colonial British rule in India. कहाँ पर यूज हुआ ये justification? In their own parliament, in British parliament. वहाँ पे in while they were ruling India, there were people all across the world, including in their own country, right? Where they said, no, what we are doing, we are going to another country, we are dominating them, we are ruling over them. It is not right. But then these works were cited. And they said, देखो, we are superior, they are inferior. अब हमारी ये जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि हम उनको सुधारें। ऐसा भी। So just because this happened, don't hate these people. Don't hate these people. They were who they were. We are who we are. No one is perfect. They may be biased. There may be prejudice, but they have written scientifically in the best possible way that they could do. And very important example of this kind of writing, this kind of ideology reflecting in the writing is the Cambridge History of India. There are multiple volumes of this History of India, which was written and published during 1922 and 1937. The 20th century, now we are in. We are studying, we are from 19th century, we have now come to 20th century. And here Tushar has shared in the chat, there are 5 volumes. Yes, there are 5 volumes of this Cambridge History of India. I hope you realize that this is the same ideology with which Cunningham, Marshall, Mill, Todd, Duff, all those writers have written History of India. If you agree, thumbs up. If you do not agree, if there is still some confusion, a thumb down. So remember this example. So the other examples can also be cited as examples of colonial historiography, and add to that the Cambridge History of India. So what is imperialism and what is colonialism? First of all, I would like to understand from you, if you have come across these words before, do you remember studying these words, studying these concepts before in previous grades in history? So important concepts here, colonialism and imperialism. जब एक कंट्री दूसरे कंट्री पे डोमिनेट करता है, माने उस पे कंट्रोल करता है, उस पे हावी रहता है, वो फॉर्मली हो या इनफॉर्मली हो, एंड दिस डोमिनेशन इज मेनली इकोनॉमिक एंड पॉलिटिकल. जरूरी नहीं है कि राज कर रहा हो, लेकिन डोमिनेशन है कि एक कंट्री दूसरे कंट्री से बिना पूछे कोई डिसीजन नहीं ले सकता, एक कंट्री दूसरे कंट्री के ऊपर रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाता है. That will be imperialism. And when the control is so much that it is physical, it is on the ground, when people go and rule that country, when the soldiers are there in that country, when the staff is there in that country to control that country, to exploit that country, that becomes colonialism. So India during the British rule was both a part of British Empire and it was a colony of Britishers. सिर्फ हमारे ऊपर ब्रिटिश का इनडायरेक्ट कंट्रोल ही नहीं था, डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल था और कंट्री का एक्सप्लॉइटेशन भी हुआ. Maybe you have heard, you have studied that how the raw materials were transferred from our country to England. Most talked about example is the raw material of cotton. कि cotton यहाँ पर उगाते थे. It was transported to the England and the cotton mills there, mainly Manchester, they made cloth out of it, the cotton, and that was sold back to us at a higher price. Exploitation. अगर आपने फिर हिस्ट्री ठीक से पढ़ा है तो कॉटन के साथ साथ आपने एक और चीज पढ़ा होगा, द कल्टीवेशन ऑफ, हिंदी में कहते हैं उसको नील की खेती, द ब्लू दैट इज द इंडिगो, द डाई दैट इज यूज्ड इन कपड़ों को सफेद करने के लिए, इंक में. Lot of such things happened. So we were suffering under the both imperialism and colonialism during this time. No longer. We are now an independent nation. We are now an independent country. We are a sovereign country. We are a constitutional democracy. A lot has changed. The second ideological framework for Indian tradition of historiography in the modern period is called the Orientalist historiography. Okay, once again, we will have to know what is this, who are these people, what they thought, what they wrote, how they wrote. So these Orientalists are also Europeans. So Europeans including the British people. Remember, the United Kingdom is part of the European continent. So we are talking about other Europeans who are not the colonial frame of mind. What were they saying? They were very curious about the culture, about the countries of the east of their countries. So India is east of Europe. They admired these countries and these civilizations. They respected these countries and these civilizations. Or so it seems. And again, I'm repeating this. Some of the British people were also part of this group, Orientalist. These people are called Orientalists, who are curious of the East, who admire the East, and who respect the East. What have they done? What is the main area of work? They have studied about the similarities between Sanskrit and European languages. Sanskrit is considered to be the oldest language in Indian subcontinent. And these people have studied the connection, the similarities between Sanskrit and European languages. Let us now pause and hear from you, see from you. Can you name 5 languages of the European continent? You can. Try. Type it in the chat. Name 5 different languages that are spoken on the continent of Europe. It's not difficult to name 5 languages from the European continent because the countries of the European continent are structured, are organized just like the states of our country, right? So as different states of India have different languages, similarly, most of the countries in Europe have their own languages. So Spain has Spanish, France has French, Italy has Italian, Portugal has Portuguese, Germany has German, Greece has Greek, and you have got it all right. So these people, the Orientalists, have studied the similarities between Sanskrit and European languages. And what did they found? What happened because of this study? They also studied the Vedic traditions. हमारे यहाँ के पूजा पाठ सब कुछ. They also studied the Sanskrit literature. Imagine Europeans studying about the ancient language of India, which we ourselves have stopped learning. And a very important result or outcome of all this work was the idea that there must have been an old ancient language which is the common source of all the Indo-European languages, because they saw so many similarities between Sanskrit and the European languages. The proposition is that there must be an ancient source, a very old language, from which the Sanskrit and European languages came about. And that is why the entire family of the Indian languages and European languages, they are called Indo-European languages. Connection हो गया इंडिया और यूरोप के बीच में. So who are these people? What have they written? Sir William Jones. More names. What is he known for? He set up this society called Asiatic Society in Kolkata in 1784. As the name suggests, it will research on Asia, and it did. Not just Asia, specifically about India, Indian literature and history. Another name, Friedrich Max Müller. Friedrich is not Frederick, Friedrich, German. He has done a lot of work with Sanskrit. And he is the person who has given who has proposed that Sanskrit is the oldest of all the Indo-European languages. So his research is telling us that Sanskrit may be even older than the Latin. So the old language, the ancestor of all the Indo-European languages that the Orientalists were proposing, perhaps it is Sanskrit. Perhaps. He translated this book, which is called Hitopadesh. Hit means goodwill, हमारे भले की बातें. उपदेश माने भाषण, suggestion, हमारे भले के लिए suggestion. This is a collection of stories which have a moral. Moral can be लोगों की मदद करनी चाहिए, चोरी नहीं करना चाहिए, सामान बचा के रखना चाहिए, all those things. This was originally written in Sanskrit, and this person, Friedrich Max Müller, he translated it. And when he translated it, it became accessible to more people who did not understand Sanskrit but other languages. He has written this series of books, the Sacred Books of the East. Sacred books means he's writing about religious books, about different religions of this part of the world. So much so that he has translated the Rig Veda into German. There are 4 Vedas in our Vedic tradition. Do you know the names, the 4 Vedas? If you know, you can type or you can speak. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Athar Veda, Sam Veda. These are the 4 Vedas of Vedic tradition in India. I don't know what exactly they contain. I don't remember. I have a very vague idea कि one of the Vedas is about music, one of the Vedas is about yajnas, पूजा जो करते हैं वो. One of the Vedas is the Athar Veda and Rig Veda. They are about one is about economics, one is about ruling, but I may be wrong. So please check. Please check on Wikipedia. Do your Google search. Find out what each of these Vedas are about. But again, there are some critics of this work also. Remember the critics of the colonial work. So there are some critics of the Orientalist work also. And this person, Edward Said is one of the most famous critics of the Orientalist writings. What has he said? He has said, ऐसा मत सोचो कि ये बड़े दूध के धुले हैं, कि ये सिर्फ हमारी तारीफ कर रहे थे. He is saying that maybe they were praising this part of the world because they had imperialist interest. वो झगड़ा करके नहीं राज करना चाहते थे, वो चापलूसी करके, तारीफ करके राज करना चाहते थे. होता है ना, हमको कोई प्यार से कुछ बोले तो हम उनका काम कर देते हैं, भले ही हमको थोड़ा दुख हो. So this is the allegation of Edward Said, that these Orientalist writers, these Orientalist writings, although on the face, when we look at them, at first glance they may come across as some people or writings which are that are respecting, admiring, that are curious about the East, but maybe they had some imperialist interest कि अगर हम उनकी तारीफ करेंगे तो हमको भी वहां पे राज करने को मिलेगा.